Good afternoon and welcome to the third of our four-part series, SADD Chapter Management 101. Today's session is about creating a SADD leadership and officer team. My name is Chris Dzurick and I am the State Coordinator for Missouri SADD, or Students Against Destructive Decisions. This is again the third video of a four-part series. Our first video was over utilizing and accessing the SADD portal, and our second video on membership recruitment and meeting management. We encourage you to watch the videos from the past 2 days to make sure you're all up to date before diving into building an officer team with us in today's session. As always, we always like to remind you of the way that we conduct change through SADD. That's empowering teens, engaging parents, mobilizing communities, and changing lives. When it comes to any student organization, it's important to create opportunities for students to gain leadership skills and actually lead the chapter. So we always talk about what value does an officer team bring to your SADD program. Students have the opportunity to learn many different professional skills and workplace skills that industry is demanding, things like teamwork, things like communication, things like public speaking. These are all elements that students need in order to be successful in their future careers, and student organizations help provide that opportunity. It's also helpful to remember that students are the doers of the work, and you as the advisor are there to advise and to provide support, but students should actually be the ones that are doing the activities in SADD. Officer created and managed activities are actually a form of peer education. And when we talk about peer education, what we mean is that this is where students are actually the ones that are taking charge, and they're teaching and learning from their peers along the way. So it's kind of a two-way street, and that peer education, those style projects are so much more successful when we talk about impacting youth. When it comes to electing an officer team, you have a couple of different ways to do this within your SADD chapter. And out of all of this, I want to remind everyone, these are just ideas. You're able to do whatever works best in your school, following any of your school's policies, in forming a leadership team or an officer team for SADD. One method is a student vote. And in this case, students are able to submit an application. They indicate a preferred office, and then each student's awarded a vote, each member of your SADD chapter, and they select their candidates for each office. The student with majority wins. This is a simple, traditional election. There's also an application method, in which case students apply for a particular office, and then the advisor or maybe a committee of industry, those are the individuals who actually select the students for each office. So this removes the student vote component. Works really great if you're afraid there's going to be like a popularity contest style election. This is a great method for you to utilize to make sure you've got those top tier candidates in those roles. Another method that you can use is the slate method. And in this case, students don't actually pick an office, but they do have to apply to be a SADD officer. Each student is then awarded the number of votes equal to the number of offices there are. So each SADD member, let's say you're going to have 6 SADD offices, leadership offices. Each member of SADD then gets 6 votes, and they pick their top 6 candidates. Those students who receive the top number of votes will win, and then the advisor and or a committee, similar to the application method, will then place the students into the 6 leadership positions that you might have in your SADD chapter. So the slate method is kind of a nice hybrid, and it allows students who maybe are torn between multiple candidates, instead of being forced to pick one, they're able to select their top 6 students, and then all of those students might actually end up receiving an office in some capacity and being a part of that SADD leadership team. So once you've conducted an election, the next thing that you need to focus on is training and engaging those student officers. I always recommend actually holding your election in the end of the spring semester. What this allows you to do is over the summer, hold a retreat where those officers can plan for the school year ahead. That training might only be a few hours, might be a multi-day retreat. It's entirely up to you and how much time that you need. But what we want to remind you is that training is a continual process. So just because you meet for 4 hours over the summer or even 3 days over the summer, training is still always ongoing, and you should always be providing those opportunities to train your officers and provide them those skills. When you have those local chapter officers, those SADD officers, you can actually focus on not only their kind of professional SADD goals, but also what their personal goals might be. And maybe they're afraid of public speaking. Maybe they want to improve their writing skills or their graphic design skills. It's really important to remember that our students have taken on these opportunities not only because they care about the organization and its mission, but they're also working to grow themselves. So we always need to focus on kind of that holistic 360 idea of not just the student who's an officer, but the officer who is a student and a person. Make sure we're developing all of those levels along the way. When you're working with your officers, you'll do the development of something we call a program of work, maybe a POW or a program of activities, a POA. What this is a document that outlines the who, what, when, where, why, and how your SADD chapter will accomplish their work over the course of the year. We can provide you with samples of that program of work, and if you're looking at helping develop one for your chapter, just let us know, and we're happy to send you some template resources for that. You can also meet with your SADD chapter officers on alternating weeks or alternating months, whatever it is from your meetings, to make sure that you're engaging those students in the development, checking in on the program of work, planning meeting agendas, maybe touching base with your school on activities that you want to propose. It's always good to meet with those officers maybe more frequently than you do your full chapter membership. Kind of like how a traditional organization, a large organization, the executive committee might meet more regularly than a full board of directors. All meetings that you have, you should keep accurate records of, and it allows your chapter officer teams in future years to go back and see what their predecessors had done. So maybe you have an activity that's been long-standing and your officers are looking at revamping it. Maybe they want to go back and see if it was different 5 or 10 years ago and they'd already tried that and it didn't work. Or maybe it was a great success and it just kind of faded over time. Keeping those records in a Google Drive folder or a Dropbox folder or even paper records allows that team to go back and see what was done in the past. Finally, you can take advantage of opportunities like SADD Speaks, which is a leadership training program from our SADD Nation. Or you can have Missouri Youth Ambassadors, which is our Missouri youth leadership program that we provide here that allows SADD students to gain additional leadership skills and provide additional support to our chapters. So we've provided you with some information on kind of maybe how to elect officers, how to train those officers to be great leaders, but what do those officers actually look like and what do they do? So we wanted to give you a couple of different options that you might consider. The first is leadership positions. And this is going to be the more traditional model. This is where there are multiple positions. Each position has duties, and those students work to accomplish those duties independently and then collaboratively between all of them. They're part of the larger picture. This is really great in larger schools when you have a really big student base. You have lots of students who are interested in being involved. And in this case, advisors play a little less of a role because those students have very finite responsibilities. The other idea is a committee-based leadership team. And in this case, you build committees that have multiple members, each with a charge over the course of the year. So maybe there are 2 or 3 students on the committee and they have to execute a certain amount of work. Each committee then has a chair, and you can have those chairs elected through an election process. And in these, programs are all developed with the group. So it's group work, it's group think, it's all that collaborative element. This is great in small schools where you only have maybe 8, 10, 12 students in your SADD chapter, so everyone's got to have a hand in getting everything done. And the thing to remember is that committees kind of require a little more advisor support because there are multiple people, differing ideas and execution. So you do have to play a little bit more of an active role in that. If you're going to follow the leadership model, we've given you 4 sample positions that you might consider. You can always customize these to your school's needs, but we've given you, in this case, president and vice president of engagement, I'm not going to review the duties that are here for each of these positions, but I will leave them up on the screen here for a couple of seconds longer so you can kind of see, you can always pause and go back to this as to what your president and what your vice president of engagement might do for your chapter. President, obviously, leader of the chapter, vice president of engagement is going to be that kind of marketing public relations person. We also have the vice president of programming and the vice president of leadership and events. And you might think these kind of sound a little bit similar, and they do. They're probably going to work hand in hand, but they're going to be a little bit different. Your vice president of programming is who's going to develop all the activities, get all the stuff organized from SADD Nations, all those toolkits and media releases, and get all that distributed to everybody. Whereas your vice president of leadership and events is going to focus on leadership activities in your chapter and the event logistics, the actual kind of day of logistics, who's staffing it, what needs to happen in order for that event to be successful. So a little bit different roles, but you'll see they do have to kind of work hand in hand. If you are going to go with the committee route, there's two different ways you can kind of do this. You can either do by topic or by function. In by topic, you build committees that are charged with a very specific topic, and they have to do everything that would happen within that topic. So all the programs, the leadership, the training, the marketing. So you can make a mental health committee, a traffic safety committee, a substance use prevention committee. So everything that would fall under that umbrella is going to have to fall under them. So traffic safety would be buckle up, phone down, and it would be rock the belt, and it might be elements of the prom campaign. So they're going to have all of those under them, events, leadership, everything. In a by function model, you create teams that have specific functions to execute. This is probably the more traditional way that you would do a committee structure. An events committee makes sure all of the events happen. Training committee does all the professional development. Marketing does all the advertising. So it's a by function model. Again, much more traditional, what you'd see with a typical organization. Want to thank you for joining us for this third of a 4-part video series. Today's session has been on creating a chapter officer team. On Monday, we reviewed the SADD portal, and on Tuesday, we talked about membership and marketing. So again, this is the third part of our video series, and as always, our videos are recorded and available at actmissouri.org/SADD. My contact information is available on this screen. I want to thank you all for helping SADD to build happy, healthy communities across Missouri.